Welcome to the weekend. My name is Brian, and you are watching Toons Radio on YouTube at oneup.club. As you can tell, basically the format is completely different now, and this is the first video that we're actually providing as a Toon service during these weird times, hence QuaranTOONS. Basically, doing videos means that we got to learn a lot of new stuff, including things like software, how to talk to the camera, just doing a lot of editing that we didn't normally do with the podcast side of the show whenever we did it back in the day. But I felt like today, given all the craziness of what's going on in the world, we could all use a little bit of excitement, a little bit of fun, a little bit of a break from the norms. And YouTube, it seemed like something that gives me a new format of creativity. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Obviously, I've got to update Toon Studios East, which if you're familiar with the old podcast, that is what we refer to as, which is my basement, when we recorded the podcast from here. We got to get comfortable speaking to the camera and things like that. We got a bunch of stuff sort of planned and not really planned, but the creativity of the show will actually come back, ideally in a perfect world. We're going to be doing a lot of different stuff, not just OneUp.club stuff like we did with the video game podcast, and not just some of the crazy stuff that we did with Toons either. We're going to have a good mix of pretty much everything. The rules of Toons, really, they're going to be the same as they've always been. Just have fun. We're not here to gatekeep. I mean, we all love Star Wars and things like that here at this show, but if you don't, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm not going to tell you that you have to like a movie or not like a movie just because that's the way I feel, and you shouldn't do that either. We're not here to engage in any kind of personal attacks or anything like that if we do differ in opinion, which is a big thing. I mean, you follow social media, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, anything like that. If the minute you have a disagreement on those formats, it's immediately you get ganged up on, mobbed on. We're not about that here at Toons. We're not here at the OneUp Club. We're not trying to gatekeep and just be that mob mentality where the minute we differ in opinion about something, no matter how big or small that thing is, there's no need to gang up on anybody. Leave that shit at the door. We're not here to play politics, anything like that. Fact of the matter is, we do live in challenging times, and all that should be left at the door, so to speak. We're here to entertain each other. It's not a one-way street. I love conversing with people who just want to have fun and just have interesting, silly things to do. If it's a one-liner, if it's a long-form thing that makes me laugh, I'm all about that. That's what I want to do. I think that's what the majority of us out in the world want to do, and that's actually what we need right now. There's so much focus on all the negativity and all the things, and now the invisible things that are outside of our doors right now that we oftentimes just forget that it's okay to relax. It's okay to sit back. It's okay to have fun and enjoy the things that we want to do, whether that's a beer or whether that's food or the latest episode of Boy Meets World or whatever. Tiger King, if that's your thing, not my thing, and that's okay. We're not here to fertilize our own bullshit, arrogance, and sense of self-importance. That's the important thing. We're here to have fun. That's all we really should be doing. So look for Toons to be as interactive as we can possibly be. We are going to talk about video games or current events or movies, television, from all across all the different genres, because there's a lot to talk about on any given time. Our world is a big thing with a lot of things to enjoy, a lot of things to avoid. We're going to talk about the weird, the wonderful, talk about the silly. If the silly's not there, we're going to help create it. We should create it together. Because it's always there. We just have to be willing to reach out and find it. And there will be just all kinds of different stuff to talk about that just pops up. We're going to have scripted things, sketches. We're going to have improvisation, we can't even talk. We're going to have improvised things. We're going to play all the fun games that we used to do on Toons with the Toons Championships and all the big, awesome fake prizes. And we're going to cover a bunch of the stuff that we covered at the One Up Club as well. So be looking forward to that. Welcome to the weekend. This is part 1 of the Quarantine series here at the One Up Club. An interview with a quarantine expert that you never even realized that you needed to see. So we'll see you on the other side. Here at the One Up Club, we care about everybody out there that could be watching or listening or whatever. And so what we've done here with the Toon Show is we've reached out to a quarantining expert, Mr. Nipper Cranston. Nipper Cranston, thank you so much for joining. I'm sorry?
It's pronounced Nipper.
Oh, yes.
You can't say that other word.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you so much, first off, for joining us. I know that it's a very busy time for you, no doubt, given all of the craziness that is going on in the world with all the quarantining. I mean, you must be busy. You must be just having a blast.
Yeah, this is probably the greatest day of my life. I've been waiting for this for a long time. My friends have always laughed at me. But who's laughing now?
Well, I mean, given everything that's going on, and I had a whole bunch of questions that I actually wanted to ask you here, because it is a very confusing time for many of us who don't often quarantine. I think everything that anybody really takes a passion to, they have some point of origin. For you, what was that origin? What got you interested so much in quarantining?
My dad was a quarantiner. His dad was a quarantiner, so it's been in the family for years. Generations of Cranstons have not been outside since the early 1800s. So we've stayed inside, we've stayed clean, we've stayed healthy. My dad lived to be 112, and I hope to live to be 113. So I could stick it to him and say, you know what, Dad, I did it.
Yeah, I mean, and you're so successful at it. I mean, you've really got a reputation going to where it didn't take me long. I had to just Google search just once, and then go to like the 600th page, and you were finally there. And I think it was like 604. So you're really climbing the ranks. I think it's really impressive. And any time, like, I look at my origins points, and I can just name people like really who got me into podcasting in the beginning was an old school video game podcaster, Fat Ninja, and his show was just so entertaining. I'm like, man, I really need to do this for myself. And after listening to him, I really just kind of dove all in. Who was your inspiration? Like, do you have any of those mentors or just kind of that one person that you really looked up to? Like, if you had a Nipper Cranston Hall of Fame of quarantiners, who would you actually put on that list?
Well, I could tell you who it's not, Brian. It's not that Quarantine Gene on YouTube. I'll tell you that right now. He'll go on YouTube and he'll say he's the best quarantiner out there, but I don't see him hiding in a tent. I don't see him wearing a face mask. I've been quarantining for years, and now that it's cool, Quarantine Gene's out there making a pretty penny off of it. I've been quarantining my whole life. I've given up friends, I've given up lovers, I've given up children, I've given up careers, and Quarantine Gene's out there making money off this. I don't do it for the money, Brian. I do it for the quarantine. And expecting the quarantine, because that's how I was raised.
I think that's just incredible. Is there like a whole community of quarantiners, or is that kind of the anti thing? Like, if two quarantiners actually got together, would it be kind of like the two time travelers, the same person, like they can't come in contact with? Is that the type of situation you would end up in?
Well, I'll tell you this, Brian, we don't get together. Not often. There is a quarantine, like a reunion we have every year at the Holiday Inn in Steubenville, Ohio, if you're familiar. But it gets canceled almost every year. Um, but yeah, we don't get together. We don't talk often. Like I said, it's more about the quarantine for me than it is about the social aspects. Once you get into quarantining, you give up that social life. You give up any chance of normalcy. It's something that you have to sacrifice for the quarantine. Um, you can't really extend a handout because in a real quarantine, Brian, let me tell you, it's you versus the world, and you can't afford for someone's in here. Sorry.
No, that's good. Fine.
No, you have to be very, very diligent and make sure that you're clean, that you're on your own. Um, so yeah, we're not a very social people.
It sounds to me like your basic. It can all be boiled down to there is no team in quarantine. Just
I've
guessing.
never heard that before.
It just seems like that would totally run counter to it. Now, I know that a lot of people were freaking out whenever all this started to go down. You saw the stocks of the stockpiles of just toilet paper just disappear, things like that. For our viewers and our listeners, could you actually give us a little bit of a rundown of what it would be smart to keep in stock in the home so that quarantining is, it's not just like kind of a passive thing for people, but to actually make it a passionate thing for them? Like how do you give them a square one, a block one to start from, as it pertains to actually having supplies?
Well, I get this question a lot, Brian, because a lot of people are really into quarantining right now. Um, so I would say the first things first, is you have to be quarantined up here. A good quarantine starts in the mind, Brian. And if you're not ready for that, you really have to be quarantined up there. Rule number 2 is safety first. Is you really have to put your safety above the safety of all others, no matter it be a pet, a loved one, whatever those are, whatever those things are. I hear they're important, but you got to put yourself first. Number 3 is water. A human being is 70% water, from what I understand. If you are any less than that of water, I assume you die. I don't read much. I don't put a lot of faith in science. I don't put a lot of faith in medicine. Like I said, the quarantine's up here, Brian. So, you got to be mentally prepared. You have to be safe. And 3, you have to have water.
Nice. And those are some really solid tips for people, I think. Now, I personally, I like to keep the Clorox wipes available for the quarantining thing. Because, you have to get used to it, kind of an acquired taste. But if you do run out of toilet paper, you can use those. I don't like to, though. They're talking about bleached assholes and stuff like that. That's pretty much what happens. My only problem is, like, they never have them in the stores these days. I go every single day as part of my quarantining regimen. I go to the grocery store every single day. And they just never have that sort of thing. So do you have any kind of like recipe tips? Is there a way that I can make a Clorox wipe and actually in my home?
Well, the Clorox wipe, way before Clorox got their hands on the wipe industry, you could just put a little bit of bleach and vinegar together and dip a rag in there. And then in about 12 hours, you don't care about anything. You wake up with a little bit of a headache. But again, that's 12 hours of quarantine that you just breezed through right off the bat. So it's very important to mix as many chemicals as you can get together. and just reckless abandon with any of that. It'll put you right out. And as far if you can't get a hold of any Clorox wipes, it's incredibly important. You can use them as toilet paper, because I'll tell you what, Brian, the human rectum as we know it today in 2020, it's pampered. It's a pampered rectum, and people today they're really pampering it. Like, mine can take a wipe from a Clorox wipe, anything. You can put anything in there and it'll be fine. If people are out there using the Clorox wipes and they're getting a little irritated and they get a little rash down there, don't pamper your rectum. That's rule number 4. Live the quarantine up here, safety first, water, and don't pamper your rectum. Make sure it is tough and ready for anything in these troubled times.
Yeah, it seems like that's the cornerstone for really your entire theory. Now, it looks like you're kind of in a tent there. Is that an undisclosed location? I mean, are you trying to? Is that part of the quarantining process? Is really walling yourself off even from other people in the household, or is it you really literally living in like a tent?
I am living in a tent right now. It's just something fun I like to do. It has nothing to do with the quarantine. It's just something, it's you have to entertain yourself, and this is just fun for me. I haven't really done anything like this in a while. I don't really have children or a family, so I'm just trying to have fun and keep it light, Brian. It can't be all about danger all the time. You got to let go, and you got to have fun.
Nice. I'm actually getting some breaking news right now, if you don't mind there, Nipper. I'm going to actually, my producer, he's okay. All right, now I know, and you asked me not to disclose actually the town and the location that you're actually in. However, I will tell you that breaking news is that in your near proximity, there was a break-in at the local blood bank, and you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I mean, you're in the tent, so how close to the blood bank actually are you?
I'll be honest with you, Brian. I don't leave the house much. I really don't know where the blood bank is. I assume it's a bank with blood in it.
I mean, and you're not using us as an alibi. This isn't like we're not accessories to crime here at the One Up Club, are we? I mean, because
no. I mean, my alibi is I'm here. I'm always here.
Okay.
People know I'm always here because I don't ever leave the house, Brian.
Okay, because I was making sure, because there aren't many people that actually agree to come on the show, and you agreed really quickly, like just 10 minutes before we were on the air. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't see this as like an opportunity and you weren't the one who actually hit the blood bank.
I don't leave the house, Brian.
The mask and everything, it's just kind of a little, I'm not going to say suspicious, because I don't want you to be defensive or anything like that, because I don't suspect you at all. Like, you seem like a completely upstanding person, although it was just weird, coincidental that all that happened.
I know what you're getting at. I don't need to steal blood, Brian. I have my own blood that I keep inside of my body and in my refrigerator. If you want to see blood, I mean, if the cops come here and they have a subpoena and they have a search warrant and they want to see blood, I could show them blood. I could show them my refrigerator full of blood, Brian. I keep blood. That's a normal thing that people do in case you run out of blood, because you don't have blood, you can't be alive, Brian. And being in a quarantine is all about being alive, Brian.
I totally get it. I totally understand.
Sorry, I
Nipper, before we go, just one last question here before we hit the road with you. And I thank you again for offering up all these tips and just sharing with us a little bit of your seemingly infinite just amount of knowledge. Once all the coronavirus business has passed us and I don't know what, according to the news and Twitter, about 2/3 of the Earth's population is wiped out. Will you continue quarantining, or is that going to be something that maybe you'll come out at that point?
Oh, this isn't just a fad, Brian. This is something that I do. This is something I believe in. I'll guarantee you, I'll tell you this right now, in front of you, in front of your entire one-up crowd, is that the second this is over, the second that people are allowed back outside, that jerk, Quarantine Gene, will be out there. He'll be doing YouTube from all over the place, but not me, Brian. Nipper Cranston lives quarantine. Nipper Cranston is quarantine. Nipper Cranston has come from generations of quarantine. This isn't something I'm just doing because of a virus, Brian. This is something that I do every day because I live it.
Oh, excellent. And thank you again so much. If you want to catch up with Nipper Cranston, by all means, check him out on Google. Like I said, Nipper Cranston in the search box. And then go down to, like, I believe it was 604, page 604 in the results. You can also catch him in a brief cameo in a movie, I believe, which was called Quarantine Wolf. I haven't seen it yet, but it seemed to get pretty positive reviews from one person. Coincidentally, also from your general area, so I'm not 100% sure on that. However, be sure to do that. Check that out on Google. Thank you again for joining us here on the One Up Club, and we will be right back after a few short messages.
My daughter Ellie, well, she died birthing that thing in the forest where she used to dance the devil's dance. You stupid bitch, we don't have time! Do you want to die? It's here and it's gonna...
Is everything okay?
You that we're satanic cannibals.
They ain't never gonna find you.
You got demons? And I'm gonna come and clean up every fucking last one of them.
The child needs to recite a certain passage from the book.
Are you ready to meet your maker?
He is risen.